Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this. Hi everyone. Today's episode is a very cool episode with Courtney Starkey. So we wanted to have her on after I'd had my hypnosis session with her, because I had realized that she had a lot of experience in hearing about what souls, I guess you want to call hobbies, or what they do on the other side when we're not busy here in our consciousness isn't busy here in this incarnation. I had experienced my own kind of like seeing what the soul's interested on the other side, and I got to talk to her about it, and it seems like she had a bunch of information about what souls do. On the other side, I said, well, this is a really good episode to do. Via Lorraine and I doing Akashic Records, I've also heard of things that souls did or do on the other side, but I really wanted to hear her take and her experience and what she's heard about it. So we kind of just get together and have a really cool girl chat, spiritual girl chat about, I mean, of course it went all over the place as usual, but we stuck to our main, I guess you'd say, subject, but really getting into really interesting aspects of her experience and our own experiences as well. So we're really happy that you guys have this episode to listen to. As usual, we love having our conversations with Courtney. We've spoken to her about every once in a while doing episodes. So that's going to be fun having her on every once in a while. So also, if you guys are interested in any subject in particular that you guys might want us to talk with her about, or you might want her to talk about, definitely reach out and let us know, and we'll have her back on and we'll talk about that. So don't be afraid to contact us and shoot some ideas at us. We'll definitely reach out to her. An excuse to talk to Courtney is always amazing. I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. We had fun talking to her, and we can't wait to talk to her again. But meanwhile, dig in, guys, absorb, and be enlightened.
All right, so we have today Courtney, whom I love that you did my hypnosis session the other day, and that's why you're here. Courtney Starkey. I'm pronouncing it right? I always hesitate because I'm like scared to pronounce it. Okay, so we have you today, and we want to talk all about what souls do on the other side, whether it's a specialization or a job, or I don't know, maybe they call it a hobby, whatever they're into. Because of my hypnosis session with you, I discovered things that my soul does on the other side. And I thought, well, I want to hear everything that you've heard about and seen.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So the first thing I guess we can get into is from my aspect or my hypnosis, I learned that they're soul creators, right? Mm-hmm. So we have all kinds of creators. Like, what have you found interesting when, like, did you hear one of those creators and go, wow, there's a creator of this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there can be a creator of anything. And so I have a feeling that the theme that we'll be talking about today is that anything is possible. And my spiritual hypnosis clients will ask me all the time, can we address this? Can we talk about that? Can we do this? And I'm like, the answer is always yes. And so when it comes to creator souls, it's the same thing. What can you create? Oh, pretty much anything that you want. So it's just that it's kind of like an artist. So some artists are going to work in watercolor, others with clay, others with oil. And so it's just that you can practice and refine your craft of creating whatever it is that you would like to. And do you want to talk a little bit about what you learned with creation of worlds? And because
I thought it's so interesting. Like, if you had to ask Lucia brain, my brain, like not with the Akashic Records open, but my brain, say, hey, Lucia, how do you think planets and universes are created? Be like, of course, source through that thing, like kind of like Spider-Man thing. Like, that's how spit it out, like she created it. Wonderful. And then maybe it kind of started generating itself. But that's what my Lucia brain would have thought. But with our hypnosis session, what I ended up learning that at least she was studying something called light codes. And with those light codes, she had said that they create code and then it layers on top of each other, the code, and then that starts creating a new universe or a new planet it was.
That's insane.
And then because it's funny, a lot of my clients think that I know about everything, which is a very sweet compliment. But what exactly are light codes?
Light codes? I know what light codes are. I know that the Palladians use light codes, and they look like, if I would have to draw something, like let me see if I can draw something.
Oh, it's like
it's also called light language. Is that the same?
It could be like, it would be like a lot of.
It looks like hieroglyphics or something, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Like it could be something like this. It's like a
light language. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that says something. Maybe I just coded it in planet.
You probably did. And then I'm glad that you held it up, and then we're probably going to put this on YouTube, and then someone someday will read it and just be like, "Oh, girl, you just wrote the secret to the universe. Thank you."
I love you all.
Maybe that is the secret to the universe.
Yeah. That makes sense. But yeah, so that's, I mean, when under the hypnosis session, I remember seeing the book. I don't think I ended up describing it to you. I was just, there's so much stuff that you're bringing into your awareness under the hypnosis session. It's like impossible to tell you, hey, Courtney, I'm seeing this and this and that and that and that, right? So I remember opening up the book, and I remember just, it almost like comes to life. Like it's like the code was coming out of the book, and it was super bright, and it's like, that's why I could see when she explained it. That's why I could see, I guess she was trying to show it to me. Mm-hmm. That's why I could see how it all came together and started forming a ball, and the light code would make a movement. I don't know. Like that's the best way I can describe it.
Wow.
That book, so is like that light code written in like the Akashic Records book? Is that how you saw it?
It was in the library of the Akashic Records. It was on its like own wing, if you want to call it. Like, you know, like if you have a house and there's like hallways. So there's the main room where we usually are when we read ourselves or people. That's how she was showing it to me. And then from that room, there's a bunch of different like hallways that lead into a specialization or special room. And so that room seemed to be the room with the information of planets and universes. But then there's a whole section of the light code needed to create those. So she was studying the light code because there is apparently, what I understood was, there is no one book written there that exists that says, to create this planet that you want, just put this code together, because it doesn't exist yet, that planet that she wants. So the idea was that she was studying a bunch of planets, saying, well, I want to, for example, I'm saying something stupid because I don't know what she's looking at, but saying, I want something like Jupiter, but I also want something kind of like Pluto, and Mercury has some really good stuff that I want up in the planet. Let me mix that all together, the code, and see what I can come up with. It's like she was studying different planet code and different code.
So cool.
It's like a creation chemist.
Yeah. Also, I'm obsessed with Jupiter. There must be a reason for that. But yeah,
this is something you should definitely look into. Because you know how there are other realms stacked on the Earth realm? So the fairy realm is part of the Earth realm. And then we have this idea, there's not life on other planets. And it's just like, or maybe there are other realms that we aren't able to perceive yet that are on those other planets. So when people talk about Martians, for example, or whatever reason you're drawn to Jupiter, we don't know what realms might be laid over that area that we really love to play in.
I totally believe that. I've always believed that. It's just like another dimension, and our vision can't tap into that dimension. So we can have a spaceship passing by Mars or Jupiter, and they could be there. We just can't see them because they're not on our dimension.
Right. Yeah. Our instruments can't yet measure such things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally believe that.
Yeah.
And I think as humans, we don't think, like, if we don't see something, sometimes we don't think it's true or it exists. So I think we have to get out of that mindset. You know?
Yeah, we're humans tend to be amusingly arrogant about if they don't understand it, then either it doesn't exist or it's not valuable. So for example, we think that humans are the only ones who can laugh, right? And it's just like, no, I mean, you can watch plenty of videos of dolphins having fun and laughing. Well, okay, yeah, Lucia, you would know about this, right? And so there are all of these things, or the meditators have been saying for, I don't know, like 2,500 years or more, that if you meditate, it helps you. And now scientists are able to strap things to your head, and then scientists are like, hey, guess what? If you meditate, it helps you. We can measure it on this machine. And now people are taking it seriously. And I'm sure all these monks are just like, yeah, we've been trying to say that for a while now.
Yeah.
That's
just didn't have the machines.
Right. Yeah. Now
we have to prove
it's valid.
everything, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, just hang out with a monk. They're pretty chill. I think that you should probably try what they're doing.
Yeah.
But also that whole idea of like, you have to try things for yourself. Like if you don't try them and experience that and realize how it does help you, then why, like, you might never do it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's a perfect point, that just because someone says something does work or doesn't work or does exist or doesn't exist, you have to try it for yourself to see, because your truth is your truth. No matter what someone else says it is or is not.
Yeah. You know, when somebody tells me, like, I remember the first time the Akashic Records talked to me about parallel lives, I said, whoa, my human brain cannot accept that right now. Maybe it's true. I'm going to discard it as an option for me to believe in right now. And it took me, I think, maybe 5 years to finally go, yes, parallel lives do exist. But I didn't go, no, it's not true. I said, nah, can't even listen. Like, I can't even accept that right now. I'm going to leave it there, and I'll visit it later in 5 years. Right. But that's what bothers me about when you try to talk to something about, like, dude, I had this hypnosis session, I had this experience, and the person will be like, yeah, your mind made it up, right? Or,
right.
You know, like, they're just discard it right away because it can't be accepted. And I wish that people would be, if I could make one wish for the world, it'd be, don't say no, say, I can't fully accept that now. I'm going to leave it as a possible option for when my brain is capable of looking into that different reality. Like, that, right?
And then also respecting that we're not completely uniform beings, and that something that you can tap into isn't necessarily something that I will ever be able to tap into, but I can still trust and respect and honor that you have access to that thing, just like I'm going to have access to something that other people might not have access to. And then I've also learned, it amuses me too when we say, like, oh, that's not possible, that can't exist. I have so many things in my life where, let's say 10 years ago, I was like, I really don't understand how people can do X, Y, and Z. And then I live a little bit more life and I have more experiences. And then I'm like, oh, now I get it. Like, this thing that I 100% could not wrap my brain around, how someone could do or think or say or whatever. I live more life and I'm like, oh no, I completely understand this now. And so same thing whenever somebody does or says something and I'm like, what? And I'm like, Courtney, don't judge them, because the universe will give you a situation where you're like, oh, now I understand.
Totally.
So it's never a judgmental thing. I'm like, wait, no. I take back my judgment.
Yeah.
So true though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what your soul does on the other side?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, tell me all of it.
I think Ansel. So everybody, Ansel is the name of my soul, and he has a more masculine energy. I agree with what you were saying, Lucia, in episode 65, that there aren't really genders or anything like that for the souls. It's just how they want to present themselves. And so my soul, Ansel, comes in with a bit more of a masculine energy. And I think that because he has sent me quite a bit of his energy, about 80% was the information that I got in one of my hypnosis sessions. He is an overachiever and wants to learn really quickly and do a lot of things. And so I think that's why I also have this high energy, very like, go. And, you know, if I add like a 10th thing to my to-do list and I'm like, not a big deal, like I'll get used to it. And then I'm ready for thing 11, thing 12, thing 13 to add to my to-do list. And I'm like, whatever, I'll get stronger. And so I think that my soul is a lot like that, where it's like, let's just do everything. And so, so I don't know what he is up to exactly, except for a bunch. And I have a feeling that the overarching theme is teacher,
that makes
healer.
Sense.
Yeah, big time teacher healer combo. Probably some other things in there as well. Interesting. They're giving me creator. I don't know too much about that yet. But teacher and healer seems to be a big theme for me. And then I also think that my teaching and my healing you know how we were talking about light workers coming to Earth and incarnating here to help. I think a big part of my mission is to help those light workers.
Yes,
So
definitely.
that I'm the best teammate that I can be for them, because you guys coming here, us, coming here,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. And so I'm like, I'm here for you, team. I'm here for you. So I think that's a big part of it too.
I bet
To
that
be able to
that
teammate
feels
with-
right.
the Oval
Yeah.
Office, we were all there, the light workers, and my soul was like, "Oh man, come on!" And your soul's like, "I got you. I'll meet up with you later on. I'll give you a hand. I got
Yes.
you."
Yes, exactly. It was funny too in the episode. We were like, I think that Courtney's soul probably is on the excited side. And I was listening to it and I was like, hell yeah. Like, let's go. Yeah.
Totally. I totally picked up on that.
Yeah, people will say, like, Courtney, I think you were a cheerleader in a past life. And I'm like, I was a cheerleader in this life.
You were?
Yeah.
Oh, I could totally
Yeah.
see you as a cheerleader. Oh my God, I love it.
Oh
It
my
was fun.
gosh.
It was
Did
so
you
much
win like
fun.
an award for the most cheers or something?
Oh Lord.
cheerful.
Well, yeah, I did make All-American, and it's funny because my cheerleading coach, she would always say to the other cheerleaders, just look at how Courtney emotes with her face. Try to be as emotive. And I'm like, yeah.
I love it.
So, but I do want to make sure that we talk about parallel lives, which I also call concurrent lifetimes, because you know how we're
Concurrent?
talking about, yeah, concurrent as in like happening at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, cone with.
Oh, your Aunt Ansel's trying to teach me right now. Okay.
No, con, because it's Spanish.
Con,
Yeah.
claro.
I know,
I
like
got
four
you, I
Spanish
got you.
words, but that was one
I
of
didn't
them.
pick up on that, and I speak Spanish. Okay.
I love it. I love it.
So yeah, so I call it concurrent lifetimes, parallel lifetimes. Works as well. And so I know of 3. There may be more going on, but I know of 3, and actually 2 of them are on Earth. Only
Oh,
one of them,
wow.
as far as I know, is
Yours, your souls.
human. Mhm.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about them.
Yeah, yeah. So, and when I call myself human, I do it with like very air quotes, like human. I don't really, okay, Looney Bin, I don't really think that I'm a human. Like,
I don't think
very
I'm a
much
human
at all.
either. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
a human either. I understand you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And then literally I find myself thinking these stupid humans, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm one of those. Okay.
But are you? And yeah, because I started doing that a few years ago, maybe 2 years into receiving the hypnosis sessions. And I found myself just kind of naturally starting to say the humans, and then started to catch myself saying the humans. I was like, that's really interesting. I wonder what's happening there. And then I realized, like, oh, okay, you can come here and look human, but not necessarily be human. And that's one of the things they showed me in, quote, a future life projection, where I'm a helper on Earth in Japan, and I look human, but I'm not human. So that was actually the first time they even introduced me to that possibility.
Do you know if everybody else knows that you're not human there? You don't know.
In that future life in Japan?
Yeah.
No, I think it's a lot like this life, that people assume that you're human because you look human.
Okay. Can I ask you a question inside of that question?
Yeah.
Do you then believe that there's reptilians in human bodies between us all?
Oh yeah, I think that there is a bunch of stuff happening. So I think that there are angels that are here that look human. I think that there are aliens that are here that look human. I think that there are not so friendly beings that are here that look human. And I mean, I would have to actually go back into that hypnosis session to see. There was a being who killed my mentor. And so I was like maybe 8 years old in Japan. She had taught me a lot. I really loved her. This being comes and he shoots her with this gun thing that's not from Earth. He does not look human. He's wearing like the coat and the hat and sunglasses, but you can still, like, if you look at him more closely, it's like, whoa, like you're not even trying to look human. You've just put on some clothing.
Oh, wow.
And so then he shoots her, and then I turn to look, and she's just like, basically she's gone. And I was just like, shit, like I'm only 8. I've learned a lot from her. I will be able to continue this without her, but I really wish I could have her longer. And there was this strange thing between me and him where we just looked at each other and we both knew he couldn't do anything to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was just this
Weird.
looking, and then he walked away, and then it was just me and my dog. And I'm like, well, I
Your
guess
dog, do you think it's your now cat?
No, it's my former ferret. My ferret
Oh.
actually comes into my past life sessions more than any other being that I
love
know.
ferrets.
Are you
They're so
kidding? That's
cute.
so, oh.
They're the most underrated pet ever.
agree.
They're so much fun. So, but yeah. So, I do think that there are, and so like when you hear people talk about reptilians, if I hadn't had that hypnosis session, I would probably be like, what on earth are people talking about?
Yeah.
But because they introduced me to this idea a very long time ago, whenever they start talking about other beings being here, I'm just like, oh, okay, I can wrap my brain around it really easily because of that session. But yeah, and so also because of hypnosis, I noticed that there were some past lives that were coming in that absolutely, as far as human time and chronology, were overlapping. So I had a lifetime as a battlefield nurse in World War II. And also, I call it the 1920s farmer, but he grew up to be a man. And so I know for sure that this woman nurse
Overlap.
and this male farmer, yeah, for at least a couple of decades, overlapped with each other. And so I was in this hypnosis session and I was like, can you have overlapping lifetimes? And I almost never hear in my hypnosis sessions. I either see or I just know, or I get some sort of feeling, whether it's emotions or physical sensations. I almost never hear, but I immediately heard the words, of course you can. And then at the same time, they showed me this very beautiful image of a large white flower, a gardenia, I think. And they said, the soul is like the flower, the lifetimes are like the petals. Some of the petals seem very far apart from each other and other petals overlap. It's just like that. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And so then the next question was, well, is my soul incarnated here on earth right now as someone other than Courtney? And then they showed me this like really zoomed in image of kind of a flat orange nose. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what is that? And then they zoomed out, an orangutan.
Oh.
Yeah. I know, right? I was like, ooh, that's nice. And so I'm like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I learned so much in that session. I mean, this is only like session number 3 or 4 of mine.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it was actually session number 3 of
That's amazing.
I love how the universe was like, we're just going to tell you all of the things really quickly. I think it's because I just always trusted it. I never was like, that's dumb, that's made up, I was just always like, all right, buckle up, everybody. This is an interesting ride. And I was just in. And so they told me a lot very quickly. And so, so I see this orangutan face. And then I find out that she has a little baby boy and they're in a refuge, I think in Borneo, and they're really safe and they're happy. And it was interesting because as soon as I knew that they were safe and they were happy, I never even asked another question. I was like, wonderful. They're safe and they're happy. And like, have just never asked another question. And so, really validating to all of that about 2 years later. So I'm a spiritual hypnotherapist at this point, 2 years later, and I'm hosting a group hypnosis event. And we do this thing called the psychometry exercise, where you exchange objects with your partner. Then your partner gets information for you from your object. And it's really validating. Yeah, because it allows people to realize how psychic they are because they're nailing it. Like they're getting it right over and over and over again.
They're doing it under hypnosis or they're doing it just awake?
A mix, right? So like super light state. So they've just received a hypnosis session. Then we do the psychometry exercise. So they're still in that really open, really connected state, but it's a very light state. Which I think is very validating. You can be in a very light state and super connected and aware. Yeah. And so I end up partnering with someone, even though I'm leading it, because we had an odd number of people. So then somebody had to partner with me and I exchanged my object with him and vice versa. And so I tell them, and this is why it's so validating. Also, I tell them, do not trivialize or dismiss anything because something that seems silly to you might be really important to your partner. And when we have our own hypnosis sessions, we tend to do these self-sabotaging things like, oh, that's silly. Oh, I made that up. Oh, that's not important. And then we dismiss it. And the universe is like, I gave it to you for a reason. Like you don't need to dismiss it. But for your partner, you can't dismiss it because you don't know what's important to them. So then this gentleman I'm partnering with, he says to me, he was like, I am so sorry. What I got for you is so weird. It doesn't make any sense at all. I'm like, don't worry about it, man. Just tell me. It might be important.
Oh my
And
God.
he goes, I know. And he goes, I saw an orangutan. And I don't want to ask him any leading questions, right? And so I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And then I said to him, I was like, did you get a sense of a gender? And he goes, I think it was a female. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And I was like, was she alone or was she with someone or another orangutan? And he goes, oh, she has a son. And I was
Oh
just
my
like,
God.
he totally nailed it. And meanwhile, he's apologizing to me because what he got was nonsense.
Oh,
And I'm like, this was actually incredibly validating.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God. And
So nuts. Oh my
that's
God.
amazing. And that lifetime, like, was it, I mean, do you know what you were supposed to learn or feel from that experience when they showed that lifetime to you?
of being an orangutan or the Japanese lifetime in the future.
The orangutan, like they showed that to you and then they confirmed that to you for a reason. Like what is it that you learned, saw, felt, or perceived from that scenario that you think that they needed you to see?
So, okay, I think part of my mission on this earth is that this is so amusing to me that this is even a thing that exists. But we have these people who are really, really open-minded and really rock the boat and will say something like, I believe in past life regression. And meanwhile, a bunch of people are like, you're crazy. That can't happen. And they're like, too bad. I do believe in it. And so it's like they've opened up their mind to a certain degree. And then they just stop right there. And then they make these rules where they're like, well, I believe in this thing that other people say is crazy. But as soon as I hear something that another person says that I've decided is crazy, I'm going to shut my mind to that. And so there are people who think that you can't, like, if your soul chooses to be human, that there's not interspecies incarnation, that you don't choose to be an animal. But by the way, news bulletin, humans are animals.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say animal, I mean
savage.
non-human animal. So like there are these people that are like, oh, you either pick to be human or you pick to be an animal. And I'm like, no, you are an infinite soul that is limitless and your soul can do anything. So it can have parallel lives or concurrent lives. It can incarnate as a rock if it wants to. And I really mean that. I've gone into lifetimes as a long-necked dinosaur. One of the most loving lifetimes that I've been in. Yeah, it was incredibly loving and sweet and joyful.
Oh.
Yeah.
But that, I think I want to add in there, it's
Mhm.
interesting because then it's like we're taking value out of being an animal in this life, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Or in a future, in a past, whatever. Because there is a lot of power and things that we can learn from that. A lot. So much, I would say. So I think, and I also want to say, at least when I learned the Akashic Records, they gave me this idea of like, you start as a rock, then you move on to a plant, then you move on to an animal, then you move on to like a human being, and you can't go back. Like they would say that, but now obviously we're all opening our minds more to all these things, and we evolve.
But also, Akashic Records understand that our minds are limited, and so they know they have to talk to you in a linear time. So they explain you things in a linear time. The explanation I had gotten from that was because if you were to put a soul for the first time, like we're talking about like a newly created soul, brand new, right? Here you go. Here's a human body, right? Like you're gonna F it up. It's like you're totally not gonna get it. You're gonna be like, it's gonna be whatever. So supposedly what they say is they put you in scenarios where like rocks, it's gonna be more one soul in that rock. And like the plant kingdom, when you become like a tree, there's more than one soul connected to that tree. So supposedly you're gathering energies with other souls and learning to incarnate so that you can advance consciousness, supposedly. That's what the Akashic Records were kind of like teaching us. So that's why we can think for ourselves, we can channel for ourselves and all this stuff. A lot of us don't, right? But and that's a big thing about this here. But yeah, animals are more like instinct and less thinking consciousness. So that's what they say. Like we build up to that to learn to be able to use those abilities that come with this body that we have now, right? That's what we learned. But it's all happening at the same time also.
Yes, hello. Yeah, so like everything is happening now.
But it's like future, past, present. Well, that's what our brain thinks, right? But I find that interesting that
the timeline thing. I find that really cool. And that you've
I would say ultimately the rule is there are no rules.
Yeah.
Like there are no rules, there are no limitations. You can do whatever you want. And okay, here's a good example. So we have this idea that you are a baby, then you're a toddler, then you're a child, you know what I mean? And then like you eventually build up to an adult, and that's supposed to be the pinnacle, the peak. Well, how many of us as adults have gone back to wanting to color in coloring books? So it's like, or how many of us get dogs because we want to learn to play again? So it's like, well, if there is this whole, we're moving towards something that's better and wiser and smarter and more advanced, then once we're at that advanced spot, why are we then going, quote, back to something that we think that we left behind that was supposed to be left behind? I think that like, basically we should just draw from our favorites of all of the things. So if I want to be an animal right now because I live in a jungle where I'm safe and I get to just like have really cool upper body strength and wild orange hair. I mean, that's awesome. That's so awesome. And so like a part of me is this human, and I'm supposed to be human in quotes, and I'm supposed to be at this pinnacle. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure her lifetime is probably even sweeter than the one that exists right now. Like she's not worrying about, I'm not worrying about this, but she's not worrying about paying electric bills. You know what I mean? She's just like chilling in the jungle in a refuge where people are probably bringing her food. And like, she's got a pretty sweet life. And so it's like, I don't feel like that's any less advanced. It objectively could be more advanced than what I'm doing. So, and then the other concurrent lifetime is as a really sweet little alien. I love him. He's so sweet.
Do you know where it is? Did you get any information?
I don't think, well, okay. So this is interesting. I know where my soul is from, but I don't know if it's the same place where this alien is from.
Where's your soul from?
Onderon, which I don't know what that
I know. They're like some weird names. There's so many out there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe other people have heard of it, but I'm really curious where I'll find out this very cool stuff. And I'm like, okay, good enough. And then I never really ask any more questions about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, where am I from? I don't really know.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the first time I ever really connected with a visual of my soul was the last class we had together, which Lucia missed. But I really wish Lucia was in that class, where you guided all of us to kind of get answers from our own soul. And I got a name, and I felt this strong warrior power. I don't know what she does. I know it's a feminine energy, but also a counteracting like masculine energy where I'm like, whoa, she's probably fighting wars or something somewhere, like, or fighting for justice would feel more like, but just connecting to that, you know what I mean? If you don't get where they're from or where your soul's from, like just having that know-how is like, it can help you. Also, like for me, it was like, I try to embody that energy when I'm feeling low, or when I feel like I can't do something. I'm like, oh, well, like my soul is like super powerful. I need to bring that in. Like, it just feels so cool.
And I don't know if you remember this, but you got that vision pretty early into that group session. And did you see the way that it really inspired the flow of the remainder of the session for the other people?
So cool.
So it was a very big moment that you could tell just flowed through the entire group. And then they just kept taking it in these new directions based on that foundational catalyst that you provided.
I cried. I was crying.
Yeah.
For like 20 minutes or something.
I love a good cry.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice. It was like just feeling all this energy, and like it was just so overwhelmingly like beautiful. I couldn't like hold it back. It was impossible.
Yeah.
And also the connection with everybody else, right? Because even though we were all on Zoom, it didn't matter. I was feeling what everybody else, and we were all feeding off of that. It was kind of
distance is nothing. Easy. We like know that now. Like you can do a healing session. Someone could be on the other side of the world, and it's the same as if you're in the same room, because we don't have actual distance. It's just part of the holographic reality that we all live in, right?
Totally.
Right. And that's another perk. Like, I think this is the best year. I know everybody's like, oh, 2020, what are you doing? I'm like, 2020, I love you. And
Me
one of
too.
the many
Me
perks,
too.
it's such a good year. One of the many perks of this year is that people, myself included, are realizing that we are so easily able to connect to each other through the internet. So remember the psychometry exercise I was talking about where the gentleman was holding my object and he found out that I'm orangutan. I'm just like, oh, okay. That was very validating. I was lamenting earlier this year. I was like, this is so sad that I can't facilitate a psychometry exercise because we're not allowed to get together physically in the same room. And then I was like, wait a second, aren't I always banging the drum of there are no limitations, just try whatever? And so then I practiced doing a psychometry exercise through the internet. So you do the exact same thing, but you
like show it to them.
Yeah, you energetically share your object with your partner. They feel the object come in energetically, they receive it, and then we do the psychometry exercise just like we were in person together.
Wow.
And it's been working beautifully. So we really don't have any limitations.
We've been pushed to like throw all those limitations away this year.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that.
Like what we do, Lorena, with the readings with people's like names, right?
Yeah.
Like, so Lorena and I will do Akashic Records readings for people. And then of course, everybody always has someone in the family or a partner or a kid or an animal that they want to ask about. So in the beginning, I found it really challenging when I first began reading. I was like, I can't connect to the person because it's just in their book. And so one day, I don't know where it came from, but I just tried it. I said, okay, give me the name. And I put my hand over it. So I write it down with a little block of note and have it next to me, put my hand over it. I breathe, I take a moment, and I end up perceiving usually what I end up getting is what that person looks like to the person I'm reading. Like I'll describe the person, I see the person doing this and they'll start laughing like, yeah, that's exactly. And yeah, it's cool. And then I'll be like, well, okay, well, they're here to help you with this and this, but you're connecting and all I did was write the name down, put my hand over it to feel the vibration.
You have the intention, you're asking for whatever they need to know to come through. But it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if they're on Zoom and there's an object, as long as they feel that intention of having that object in their hand, then it has to work. Like, how could it not?
I know. Yeah. There's so much. If we would just try and just believe, believe. Yeah. And it's so funny to me when people will say, well, what if it's made up? And listen, anything is possible, including that we're making all of this up. Right. And then also, what is even real, period? Yeah. So aren't we all kind of making all of it up anyway? but yeah, so it's like, well, they're like, the skeptics are like, well, Courtney, what if they're making it up? And I'm like, hey, listen, that's completely possible. That's completely possible. But at the end of the day, they feel better.
Yeah, that's what it matters. Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're more empowered. Like what you were saying, Lorena, connecting to that energy of not just who you are, but like what you are, like the energy of what you are.
Yeah.
And I don't give two shits if it's made up. It's empowering. It works. You move forward in the world with more purpose and more strength and with more power. And honestly, I don't think you're making it up. I do think it's real.
Oh, it felt real. And now I'm remembering that was a session that my friend came to me. Yeah. My friend that passed away. That's why I was crying. I was like, why was I crying? I have the worst memory. Oh my God. Oh, it's so powerful.
That's because Lorena's using all her memory in another lifetime where she's an elephant.
You know what? I think so. I think my memory is... I
said that joking around, but I actually got it, to be honest with you. But anyways.
Yeah, it was really funny because you said it and then no one... And you're very funny. And no one laughed because we were all just like, yeah.
I said it joking around, but I actually said it. I said it as a joke because I got it. But then I'm like, oh wait, I have my records up. But no, I'm actually saying
I love that. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually totally off track, but that's okay because we're here to talk. So we talked about creators. So we talked about my soul, and then we got into what your soul does. What other creators? So I know that there's like creators, like in this case, planet. There's creators of like vegetation, right? Like what other kind of creators have you seen about?
Oh gosh. You know how Lorena was saying that her memory is not great? This is like a really tricky thing for me with sessions where I have better memory than normal during the session. So I'm able to keep track of like 8 different threads during the session, which I would not normally be able to do in just my normal state. But then the next day, when I wake up the next day, it's almost like the bulk of the session is just gone.
Yep.
So you're asking me this really good question, and I'm just like, oh shit. Like what has happened in this session?
So it's kind of what happens with the Akashic Records. Like we forget the session because you're supposed to, right?
Yeah. It's not,
Okay, so I have one coming in. Are you ready?
yeah.
Yes.
So a creator of information is coming in, and it's really interesting because it's coming in so strongly, yet it's not a direct answer to your question, but I feel like if we work through it, that they're going to weave it together so that it ties together with your question. So what's coming to me is this session that was years ago, and what he saw, he also has a lot of different lifetimes going on. I want to say it's 5 or 6. And one of them is grass, one of them is fire, you know what I mean? Like even working in the elements and things like that. And so during his session, you know, Tom and Jerry, that cartoon with the cat and the mouse, and then the mouse lived in like this little archway that you go into through the wall. And so he saw something like that, and he saw a mouse go into the wall. Okay, I think this is partially for you guys. This is very interesting. So then the mouse goes into this little space in the wall, and I was like, well, your energy, so you can shrink yourself down and you can follow the mouse into wherever the mouse has gone. So he follows the mouse in, and inside of this is a book. It's a creator of information, right? So inside is a book, and he sees this book, and this client, like, that's the other thing. People think that those who are participating in this type of activity, that they're just like, and flower children are great, but they think that they're all flower children and they all just have, you know, daisy chain crowns in their head. And, you know, we're all just wearing like skirts that are 800 feet long. Like, no, they're very, very brilliant, like very traditionally genius, normal people having these sessions. This guy is freaking smart, like really smart. And he wants to figure out how to offer people free energy. Like that's part of his mission on this earth, is figuring out how to offer people free energy. And so he knows that he's close. He just needs to learn a bit more information, and he's not even sure what that like there's a missing piece, but he doesn't know what it is. And so he goes in after this mouse. In there is a book, and he's like, oh, in chapter 3 of this book is the information that I need to know more about. And so he sees the book, he sees the color of it, he sees the color of the words, like how the book cover. So he can see like the book cover, chapter 3. And so he's getting all of this. And then a few weeks later, he is having tea. He's leaving the cafe. He sees that there's a bookstore that he's never really noticed before. He goes in, he just follows his intuition. He walks to the part of the bookstore. It's like a used bookstore. He walks to the part of the bookstore, and like at eye level, he sees the blue book with the gold lettering. And he looks at it and he's like, oh my God, I think this might be it. He opens it up to chapter 3, and he was like, okay, all right.
Oh my
This is where I
God.
start to learn the missing information. So it's like, creator of information, right? Did that book already exist, or did he create it for himself in that session to receive it in the physical later? I don't know, but he got it.
It's a good question.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a session with you and ask you if I can find the pot of gold.
Right? Oh, well, they just gave me the answer. They're so sassy. They were like, you are the pot of gold. I'm like, guys,
Good answer.
let her see the pot of gold and let her find a pot of gold. Come on, do both.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's a crazy story though. That's amazing and
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
But
Well, and then
that's amazing. But it's like the way you asked that question at the end, it's like, did he create that, or did that already exist?
and is there even a difference? I don't know. Like if everything is happening now and people are like, well, you can't go back in time because you would affect things. And I'm like, every time we do something positive, it ripples out to ourselves in the past, present, and future, so that positive thing has a positive impact on all of it. So like we're always affecting ourselves and each other, because we are all ultimately the same thing.
And I like the magic behind just accepting that. Whereas I know a lot of people that don't believe in this, you would give that exact same story you gave, and they'd say, well, I looked, look up the book, check the author, check the date it was published, and he must have seen it one day and he didn't really give it attention, and he knew he had to look at it, but he never got to it. And then he told himself when he saw it, and then he went to get it.
Yeah.
Like that's what somebody rational, right? So it's like, why do you want to live in that world when you can live in a more magical world anyway?
I know. Because the skepticism is equally magical, just as far as like how many steps it would take. So I'm glad that you're bringing this up, because his friend, he told his story, he told that same story to his friend who's a skeptic. And I'm not kidding. As far as like living in a paranoid magical world, the friend was like, did Courtney, I'm not joking. So did Courtney plant that book in the bookstore? And I'm like, is this dude like, how skeptical do you have to be to think that like somehow I found a book?
And you didn't see the book, he saw the book.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
And then you had to know he was going to go there.
But yeah, how would I know he was going to go there? How would I find the book? How would I am I typing chapter 3? Like, what does this guy think I'm doing? So I'm like, how was that more believable to this friend's mind that I planted the book than that he was just able to know about it in his session? And I'm like, dude, your version is actually way more magical / crazy than that he was just able to receive it in the session. But then also, okay, so let's say that maybe he did get exposed to that book 15 years ago, and consciously he forgot about it, and subconsciously it was brought back in. A, that's magical to be able to remember that, but then B, to find it in the bookstore.
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing, where it's like there's so many pieces of this that you could explain away a little piece here and there, but as far as that whole thing coming together, like you can't really explain away the whole thing coming together.
And the intuition to go into the bookstore and look around, like he could have just like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, just go right to it. There it is, eye level, the whole thing. Yeah.
That's not.
I promise I wasn't up until midnight typing chapter 3 and then breaking into a bookstore and then putting it
discovering Tesla's secrets that you've been trying to do, but I managed to do it and I don't even study it.
Yeah. And like I'm breaking code, like cracking the code of all of this, but then not doing anything with it myself. I'm just planting it in a bookstore for someone else to buy the whole thing. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow, you've got to be really dedicated to your skepticism to let your brain go there and to even say it out loud, like to admit to someone else that you think that. Yeah. So I'm like, we're all living in our own world. We're all living in our own world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So another thing I've heard from doing Akashic Records readings, I've heard the masters say that certain souls manipulate, for example, energy or even like nature in general, right? Mm-hmm. So have you heard of that, or can you remember hearing about that? Yeah,
that happens all the time. That one's a really easy one for me. So let's talk about manipulating energy first, and then we'll talk about manipulating nature. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my favorite examples, this happened before the hypnosis starts in a session, we have a pre-talk where I have them fill out a client intake form before the session happens. Then I review their brief answers, kind of like bullet point answers of, different bits about their background, things, the goals for the session, just for me to get an overall idea about their history as well as what they would like to achieve from the session. So during the session, our time together, we have a pre-talk. So I go through the form with them and I ask them more detailed questions about what they have answered on their form. So during this pre-talk with one of my clients, this was in my office. So this was like a brick and mortar session rather than a Zoom session. And so my tea kettle that I have for them starts making these really loud, like popping and cracking noises, like so loud that I eventually had to apologize to her. I was like, I'm really sorry. I've never seen my tea kettle do this before. And I've had the tea kettle for like 2 years at that stage. I'm like, that's so weird. What is happening? And she goes, oh, my mom, who is passed, she was like, my mom really, really liked tea. I wonder if that's my mom. And so I'm nodding and I'm grinning and I'm like, oh, maybe. But in my head, my rational mind is like, or my tea kettle is breaking. That's where I was going. And so I'm like, yeah, oh, maybe. And so then I even unplugged the tea kettle because it just like kept doing that.
Oh,
it kept making the popping, cracking noises even after I unplugged it. And I was like, man, this thing is toast. Like, this is a fire hazard. I don't even know what's happening here. And so then her mom comes into the session during the hypnosis portion. And what's funny is she really thought her dad would be the primary energy that came into the session, but he was barely in it at all. It was her mom that came in so much more. And she was like, yeah, I am the one popping and cracking the tea kettle. And I was like, okay. And like, I do believe it, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm pretty sure my tea kettle is breaking.
Yeah.
And so my tea kettle has never, it is still the one that I'm using to this day, has never behaved that way since then and is functioning perfectly fine. And so I bring all this up because some souls, like, we practice these things that we like to do and we get really good at them. Some souls are really good at manipulating energy. So the ones that can flicker the lights really nicely, the ones that can make tea kettles do whatever they want, the ones that get kind of sassy with you and will like move things around in your house, the ones that can send animals to you to have the animal do something really interesting. So we have this ability to manipulate energy to try to get that connection across. The phone calls that will come in that are really inexplicable.
My God, there's like stories of people receiving calls from their loved ones. They're on the other side of the planet and they get a call and the person was already dead. Be like, hey, just checking on you. Just want to let you know I love you.
Yeah.
And they finding out that when they received the call where they were, that person was already, I'm getting goosebumps. The person was like already gone.
Yep.
Right?
One of my clients just told me a story exactly like that, where basically her dad passed and then maybe like an hour or a few hours later, called her. And everyone was like, wait, what? And so her mom was like, I'm the one who has his phone. That can't be coming from. And then they found
putting on speaker
in her bag. Yeah. So like they had his phone in front of them, like while it was calling the other phone. And so, yeah. So they're funny. The souls are funny. I think that they enjoy showing off where they're like, yeah, I can do that.
I have this one
they're
friend.
Really good at that.
I have this one friend that like he's into like Wicca and he sees like ghosts. So he's been in this world ever since he was a little boy. But I always say that whoever dies first, we got to go haunt the other one.
I don't know about that.
But I would do I would do pranks on him, and then you'd hear my laugh in the back.
Yeah, well, so what's funny too, you know how we were talking about, and you mentioned this really nicely in episode 65, that some of our soul energy is always in the spirit realm. So it's absolutely possible that my soul, right, could even come in if it wanted to and could like flicker a light if it wanted to. Yeah. So like we don't even have to. I mean, if you want to play your prank, go ahead and play your prank, because
I'm gonna mess with their kettle tomorrow. You wait for the kettle to make a noise tomorrow. That's my soul, right?
Right. I look forward to it. Please show off. I love it.
Oh my God! If that happens, I will die.
Right.
I'm gonna meditate and I'm gonna ask her tonight. You let me know if it happens.
Well, yeah. And it's fun because we can play with each other in this way. So I have clients, again, my mission is let's stop believing in limitations. Anything is possible. And so I have these clients that are like, okay, Courtney, I'll take you up on this. And so they'll do these fun things, like they'll send me a color and then they'll text me and they'll be like, what'd you get? You know what I mean? Like fun stuff like that. And then another client, she's in my spiritual hypnosis membership, and she was meditating before a group session. I think it was the one on September 19th. So right before that, she was meditating and she was like, all right, gang, I want you to give me a word, like a really distinct word that Courtney is going to say while she's facilitating the session that will really stand out. And they gave her the word crispy. Now, she didn't tell me about this. She told me about it after the session was already done. They gave her the word crispy. And I'm thinking like, yeah, that would be an interesting word for me to bring up in hypnosis.
Yeah.
And so then while we were having the session, my little alien self was like, actually kind of like the whole family, they were like, can we help? Like, can we help facilitate? And so they were sending some messages to me. And so, I'm the one with the mouth, so I'm able to say it out loud. And they were talking about connecting to the night sky. And I don't even remember exactly what they were saying.
Oh no, you said it.
And I tried, when the Courtney version of all of this is facilitating, I tried to paint a picture that is vague. Like I would just say, and be outside and look at the sky and feel the air. But I don't want to do anything specific, because what if you're in the jungle and it's muggy and I tell you, feel the cold air? And then like I'm messing with people's experience because they're like, it's not cold, it's muggy. So I try to not be too specific. And so they were saying, and feel the crisp air. And I was thinking like, I don't want to say crisp because that's too specific, but they were saying it and I trust them. So I went ahead and said it out loud. And then she writes me, she was like, when you said crisp. And I was like, yeah, I had a moment where I was like, why am I being so descriptive right now? So we really can like show off as far as, yes, we can pop tea kettles, but we can also play with each other in this way here and now, even in quote unquote, the physical. And then as far as the manipulation of nature, it's so easy to play with nature. I would say that nature is much more flexible. Weather is really flexible. And we can play with that anytime. Like if it's raining really hard, I will ask the trees and the plants. I'm like, I know you guys need water. So rain is really helpful for you, but I need to be outside for like the next couple of hours. If it makes no difference to you, could you just like have it rain like 2 hours later? And they're just like, sure. And then the weather forecast will change. It's amazing.
Well,
So
I need to get into that because I'm usually, it's the other way around. My soul's like, she needs some rain. So, because every time I get on the bike to pick up my daughter, it's
like, interesting. Do you know why? Do you know why that's your pattern?
Because I'm a mope. I'm always moping around.
Are you a storm cloud?
Yeah. Or like I just, my mom would call me a storm in itself, right? So I'm just attracting what I am, I guess.
Yeah. But I do that with people. Like I will literally right now, I'm not kidding. I just looked over at my phone. I'm like, oh, the person I was thinking about like a friend that doesn't even live here on the island. I was like, I'm going to text her later. And I never have to text people because they always text me.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
I've been doing that lately as well.
Your energy. You were like, I've already texted you. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I did it with my mind.
Pretty much.
But sometimes I wonder if it's you calling the person towards you or you picking up on the person in the middle of about to send you the message.
It could be both.
Yeah.
It could be both. In this case, I feel, and I thought that right before you even asked that question, when I was like, I didn't call her. She needed it. And she says here, I want to ask you for a favor. So,
interesting.
So you picked up on the fact that
I have to message her back later, but that's interesting.
And let her know she's on podcast 66 or 67 or 68. I don't know what number
I'm going to tell her, yeah. But I think she said that, right? Yeah.
But no, we really have this ability to connect with each other in this way. So I'm a PhD student and I had to take a test. And the test was out of town. So I had to like drive 2 hours to take this test and I didn't want to be too tired. So I rented a hotel room, all of that stuff. And I like to try to be generous. I think that like money is energy. And so I try to be generous because I know the universe is so generous with me. And I forgot, like I was with my husband. So I'm in this space, I'm taking this test. I know that I'm just kind of stuck in there for like 2 or 3 hours. I forgot to tip the maids. And I was like, no, like, I don't want to be that room where like they're having to do all this work. And then I didn't leave anything just to say thank you to them. And so while I'm taking this test, which honestly, I had no idea if I was going to pass or fail. So it was not a chill situation. Like while I'm taking this timed test, I'm sending energy to my husband and I'm like, leave them a good tip, leave them a good tip. And so when he picked me up afterward, I was like, did you tip the maids? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, how much? And it was the amount that I was sending.
Did you tell him?
Yeah.
Did he believe that?
I think he's believing more and more in my.
He's a very logical person, right? I mean,
he's super logical. Yeah. And I think that he appreciates my weird because he's smart enough to know that he can't stay in his box. Like staying the same for him would not work well because he if it wasn't for me, he would just stay the same.
Yes.
And he knows that.
So
So
do
my
you think
weird is
that, do you think that you're then in the person's lifetime, so he helps you stay rooted and you help him come out of that box?
So this is very cute. When he was a little boy and people would ask him what he wanted to be when he grew up, most people would say astronaut, fireman, whatever. And he said that he wanted to be a flower pot.
Wow.
And it's, yeah, because he likes that flower pots can just like chill and they don't really have to do anything and they're just able to be themselves without having to like do a lot. And so then like he gets, he grows up and he's this really stable person and he marries this little like risk-taking maniac that's like, yeah, I'm just going to do all this weird stuff in the world. And I'm able to do all of this weird stuff, start this business, believe in these big dreams, do all this stuff because I'm married to such a stable partner. And so at one point he was like, oh yeah, I am the flower pot and you, Courtney, you're the flower.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, man.
Thanks.
I love
I
that.
love
I
it.
had this really nice container that I can just grow in. And I was like, hey, what color? Because I like to play with him too. I'm like, what color is the flower? And he goes, I don't know why, but I got the color purple. And I'm like, it's because my soul's purple. I love it. It's like, I don't know why. And I'm like, I do.
He's probably like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, fun.
Do you
That's awesome.
have, I know that like the Michael Newton books, he puts the souls, like when the souls show themselves, when they're on the other side, they're showing them, so they're like a color and that color defines the level of expansion or progress. Would you follow the same timeline as him, or do you feel like for you it's been a little bit different?
Okay, so you know how I was saying that I've got this mission to expand people's belief systems. So, and you talked about this in episode 65, where I believe that what's documented in these books that we all love so much, that they are like time capsules, that they are like snapshots in time of what people were receiving at the time, and that we are ready to know more and more and more. So when I was first practicing to become an LBL or Life Between Lives hypnotherapist, I was practicing on all these people that I know really well, and they know each other, but they're not close with each other. And so one of the things that you're supposed to tap into in these practice sessions is their soul groups and who's in the soul groups and what color is the soul group and what are the characteristics, the personalities within the soul group. And so I'm asking all these questions, and there are these, I practiced with at least 6 people, and 3 of them, I was in their soul group. And I was not the same color in any of them. And so for my best friend, I was, quote, a pure white. For my husband, I was a deep, loving red. For my good friend, who's like one of the most spiritual people I've ever met, I was a deep purple. And so for my best friend and my husband, both of them had soul groups where the soul colors, none of them were the same color. Like you might have an orange, a green, a gold. So not even from the spectrum of the rainbow, a bronze. Like there were colors that were coming in that were not even in the rainbow. And so I'm like, this is interesting. You know how I was saying earlier that my soul likes to get around and do a bunch of stuff? I fully believe that my soul might be like, I can be a really good teammate to my best friend's soul group if I come in as the white version of my energy. And then with my husband, I can be a really good teammate if I come in as the red version of my energy. And then I think the one with my good friend who, like, of the 3, I'm the least close to, but I have a feeling that I'm actually for realsies in his soul group and that we're all purple.
For realsies.
So I think, yeah. So I think that that's like that's my original group. But because I want to help in a bunch of different ways, I also will go into other groups and help them. Just
That's
like,
cool.
like how do I show up for this podcast? Like I'm this version of Courtney when I show up for the podcast. When I'm petting my cat, it's a different energy when I'm showing up or petting my cat. So it's all real. It's all me. But there are different ways that I present myself based on who I'm vibing with and what the situation is.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So much sense.
Yeah.
Just because we're in a soul group doesn't mean that we can't somehow have some kind of interaction or assistance in another group. That's interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, we're forming temporary teams. So we are in an original, and by the way, everything that I'm saying, like 10 years later, I might be like, ladies, I
Yeah.
have found so much more.
Yeah.
So this is just what I know at this stage.
Yes.
So we're in these original groups, but then we start to form temporary groups where we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to specialize in the expansion of this. So, you know, the 6 of us, the 8 of us, the 14 of us, the 3 of us, whatever, we're going to come together as this temporary group because we really want to focus on this certain project. And I think that we can do that. And that's why there's so many different colors and so many different specialists where
I
it's
love
like,
that.
all right, I'm really good at engineering. Okay, I'm really good at communication. Okay, I'm really good at being funny because you guys are really serious and you need one of us that lightens up the mood. You know, like there are all of these things that we can bring to the table to make for a really special temporary group.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that feels like that's part of the contract. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm getting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so complex.
There's
yeah.
and I agree, like what we're saying today, maybe in 6 months, we're like, actually, we started channeling something different and we've opened up and all this new information has come and we don't see it the same way anymore. And that's okay. That doesn't mean what we said is wrong. I just feel like we're tapping more into the information and not blocking ourselves from that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And also because all this lives forever, right? So what we're saying today, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, we might change our minds. But whoever, even if it's 20 years from now, whoever needs the information that we're talking about today, YouTube will suddenly bring up a video from 20 years ago and invite them to watch it because that's the perfect thing that they need to see on that day, even though it's like really
Yep.
It's true, but also it's the first step to believing something that they need to believe, and they can't absorb the whole thing right away. So they would get, for example, this video that led him into, then the next one is all about maybe parallel lives in itself and all just diving into the subject, for example. Like, I think that we need to be put in progressively into a subject or a new reality or a new belief system, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
We would talk for hours, but I think, Courtney, I think you
Yeah.
gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time is not real except for in 11 minutes. I'm facilitating sessions. So I should probably honor that time. Yeah.
No, but you're coming back on because we already have another idea for another episode and we're definitely going to do it because it just feels right. We're just going to do it.
Fun. It's so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, we love talking to you. Thank you. Like,
We love you, Courtney.
Love you too. Thank you so much.
Bye, Courtney. Bye, Ansel.
Bye.
bye.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode. And we want to thank Courtney for coming on and having this amazing and very open chat with us. We look forward to having you on the show again soon, Courtney. And make sure you're following us on Instagram and Facebook. As well, this episode is on YouTube, so you'll be able to see us as we chat and we kind of go through each of the topics that we go through. So we hope to see you next week on a new episode, and stay safe, guys. Bye.